Gentlemen, welcome here, first of all, in our beautiful Arrow stand, and secondly, at the North Sea Jazz Festival. For whom of you is this the first time at this festival? You've all been here before? Good.
Well, no, I have to admit, I'm a novice. I'm a novice here. This is my first time. I'm a newbie here.
Are you going to be here 3 days for this festival, or only this one day?
I'm here for as long as they don't kick me out. Yeah.
That could be a long time in Holland.
It could be 4 minutes.
all of 4 minutes. Okay. Now, maybe I should tell for the people around us here, this is Mr. Jonathan Jeremiah, who will be singing with the Metropole Orchestra, which will be conducted by Jules Buckley, sitting next to him, and Pieter, let me make sure I pronounce your last name right, Pieter Hunfeld is the French horn player. Ha! Well, and these people, we're going to talk to these people about what it is to be performing with a large orchestra of that size and of that, let's say, reputation, and to do it at a festival like this. Now, is this your first time you've worked with the Metropole Orchestra?
Well, I've obviously heard so much about them. I've seen them a couple of times when I've mostly on YouTube, though, I have to confess. But we've had a couple of fun days together in rehearsals up in Hilversum, and but this is my first show with them. Yeah.
How did you know about this orchestra? You said YouTube, but how do you know to look for them on YouTube?
Well, I mean, Jules and I go back a good few years, and from our work together in London on my first album, and we keep in contact about what we're doing, and he was obviously telling me he spends a lot of time with the Metropole, and so when he's with Basement Jaxx, I get to see it on YouTube, and he'll play me a couple of tracks on his computer, so I get to see all the fun stuff. Yeah.
Now, you've been working with the Metropole Orchestra for how long now? Off and on?
About 3.5 years.
Okay. What was, I suppose, the reputation of the orchestra preceded itself before you came to stand on the podium before the orchestra? What did you know about the orchestra? How did you get in contact with the orchestra?
The chief conductor, Vince Mendoza, I was at a summer school in Los Angeles, and he was a kind of artist in residence, and we kept in touch after this course, and he liked what I was doing in London with my own orchestra there, and then he said you should come over and get involved with the Metropole, because what he saw what I was doing in London had relevance to what the Metropole does, i.e. non-classical music, a lot of commercial music and a lot of jazz, and so that's how I kind of became involved. So he sort of set me up with them for a gig, and it went well, and it continued from there.
Okay, now part of it may be because I'm Dutch, but I like to think that the Metropole is unique in its kind in the world, as a standing professional orchestra that is very flexible to go a lot of ways that I've seen a lot of other orchestras not being able to go. What is your take on that?
I think that your take on that is absolutely correct, because this orchestra is not a classical ensemble, so the thing is, if you bring a groove to this orchestra, they're going to nail it. If you take a groove to a symphony orchestra, they're not going to nail it. In fact, there's not even a nail, you know, in the process, or not even a hammer. Yeah, you know, in fact, you're just punching at air. But well, the thing about the Metropole that's unique is that they don't do classical music, so they do everything other than that. So they specialise in groove music, in contemporary commercial music, in high end, you know, in high art jazz stuff with the best in the business. So it's kind of, you know, yeah, they're the best at that, full stop, and they're the only orchestra that exists doing that stuff that is subsidised or, you know, in full time.
These are times of crisis. We never know what to
tell me about it. Yeah. How long have you got? Or how long have you know?
Exactly. How long does the orchestra have? I hear you thinking. Okay.
Have you got any cash on you?
Let me see. I'll check in a minute. Okay. Let me ask the man on the inside, Pieter Hunfeld. How long have you been? I'm sorry. How long have you been with the orchestra?
I'm here for 3 years now.
Okay. So, playing playing French horn in a band like that. How's it? I mean, without getting too technical, did it take you a lot of effort to get used to the phrasing?
It did, because my whole school and the whole way I got raised is in the classical way. But when I was at the conservatory, I already started joining the big band because I enjoyed it so much. So I got a bit of tricks and tips over there, and then I started working in the Metropole, and they became really useful.
Very nice. What is your opinion of how the orchestra measures up against other orchestras of that type in the world?
That's a bit. In fact, that's a really easy question, because there are no other orchestras of this type in the world. So there are no orchestras anywhere in the world that got 10 Grammy nominations in 4 years and 2 Grammys in 4 years. I mean, I think that's a standard on its own.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Now, because you already told me you guys go back a while, did this arise out of you suddenly thinking, this would be great for Jonathan? Is that what it was?
This is it's a very good and a very astute question. And to answer it in the best way possible, Jonathan and I had sort of come into contact doing his music about 5 years ago, maybe even 6 years ago, and he has this kind of cinematic / kind of beat element involved, and obviously it involved a lot of orchestration on his album, and then somehow I think the Dutch sort of arm of Universal, of which Jonathan is under with Island Records, were digging his tunes, and then it became pretty popular in Holland recently. And obviously Jonathan knew I was working with Metropole, and a friend of ours, Kim Ormel, she also knew of Jonathan and worked with him, and she wanted to try and set it up. So half of it was coincidence, but on the other hand, it was probably always going to kind of work that way at some point, you know.
Okay. Because we all know organizing these things can create difficulties of biblical proportions, but you performed today at what time?
Today we performed at about 5:15 until about 11 minutes past 5, when they decided we didn't have enough time to finish the gig.
So let's talk a little bit about your repertoire. How could we, for those of you that don't know who you are, how can your repertoire be best described?
Well, I think I draw from a few different sources, and I was always very fond of cinematic contemporary music, as opposed to the pop world that we have in the UK. And so my favourite composers would be like Jean-Claude Vanier, who'd worked with Serge Gainsbourg and on Melody Nelson, or John Barry, who worked on lots of stuff, so many movie soundtracks and so on. And I want to do something different, as opposed to follow a very pop route. And so I drew from my my interest in jazz and soul, and yes, it's an amalgamation of all those things.
Did working with the Metropole bring out something which you heard, or did you have charts already completely?
Well, thankfully Jules does all of that. I get to enjoy the Belgian beer, and Jules gets to work till 2 o'clock in the morning. So I don't really have to worry too much. It's in good hands. It's in very good hands.
It must be strange to hear your own repertoire all of a sudden, because there arrives this moment when all the arrangements are done. Here's the orchestra, you sing, and there you hear this sound.
Well, it's not quite as instant as that, is it? There's a lot of work that's done in between, and the album being so heavily orchestrated, I mean, there must be at least 100 musicians on that record in some shape or form, across those 12 songs that we recorded across 5 years. There's a lot of players on it, and so it's a very big recording to start with. I'm just not used to it with about 50 people, at one time. So it is an amazing experience when you witness that. Yeah.
Well, it's always nice in a setting like this to see all that come together. Wish all you gentlemen very well. And there's this thing that I've been informed about. You are expected to sign the seat you sit on with a felt tip pen. We're going to auction these seats off. And This is what I'm told. Okay.
Who do we have it on already? Who's signed that?
Okay. Well, you know. Okay. Pieter Hunfeld, Jules Buckley, and Jonathan Jeremiah, ladies and gentlemen. Hey.
Thank you very much. A real pleasure.